Tomorrow, WKYC is bringing you another special edition of Front Row, A Turning Point. We'll be looking at fair housing across Northeast Ohio, as April is Fair Housing Month.
Yeah, and as we look at what's being done locally here, this month marks the 55th anniversary of the Fair Housing Law, which outlawed discriminatory housing practices.
WKYC senior commentator Leon Bibb takes a look at the history of this practice and the lingering impact that it has on today's neighborhoods throughout Northeast Ohio.
Decades ago, in some Cleveland neighborhoods, there were illegal lines drawn to do one thing: keep people from crossing them. Not painted in Cleveland pavement, but red inked on some city maps. It was called redlining, designed to foster racial segregation and discrimination in housing. Redlining
made it more difficult for Black people to get financing on favorable terms and limited where they were able to buy.
Georgia Tech history professor Todd Michney studies redlining and how, beginning in the 1930s, a federal agency, the Homeowners Loan Corporation, created color-coded maps of hundreds of American cities, including Cleveland. Maps were coded as to a neighborhood's desirability, as well as the government's emphasis on what race of people it thought should live there. The federal government agency pushed real estate agents to keep people of color out of Cleveland neighborhoods painted red.
The federal government during the 1930s used this process and encouraged it and helped to spread that practice to local lending institutions.
Cleveland civil rights attorney Avery Friedman, who has long fought for fair housing, said redlining was designed to promote one thing:
supremacy, to make sure that certain people, because of race and other factors over which you have no control, could not move into better neighborhoods.
In many areas, redlining existed from 1930s well into the 60s. This was a time of a rapidly growing Cleveland Black population, spurred by the Great Migration of Blacks from the segregated South. In 25 years alone, Cleveland's Black residents grew from 35,000 to 147,000. Still, the numbers increased beyond that. Many residing in the Cedar Central neighborhood, Blacks pushed to find housing in red-lined areas or in neighborhoods which actually had race restrictions built in individual property deeds.
Deeds that said this house cannot be sold to Black people. And sometimes it said Jews, and sometimes it said Chinese people.
In his book, Surrogate Suburbs, Todd Michney chronicles how the first crack into the redlining wall came as Black World War II service members returned to Cleveland from overseas, where they fought for freedoms they did not have at home.
So that gave kind of a boost. And Black soldiers themselves came back expecting more rights and better treatment.
In the 1930s and early 1940s, this was a red line area, not open to Blacks buying homes. But by the end of World War II, things began to change. Black soldiers fighting in the war were coming home, demanding their rights and getting more rights. In 1947, my parents bought that house right there. Had it been 10 years before, they never would have been able to buy because of redlining. The battle against redlining was slow. However, the fight for fair housing came in the wake of an assassination. Civil rights attorney Friedman remembers how a 1968 fair housing bill was deadlocked in Congress with no chance of passing until the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and the nationwide rioting which followed.
Legislation dealing with redlining, which had been bottled up in committee, rocketed through both houses of Congress, was hand-carried and signed by the President, Lyndon Johnson, on the 11th of April, 1 week after the murder.
For 55 years, fair housing has been the law, offering protections for all people renting, buying homes, getting mortgages, or seeking housing assistance. The law is a protection against racial, color, national origin, religious, sex, familial status, or disability discrimination. The red lines of discrimination now live only on historical maps. For 3 News, I'm Leon Bibb.
Leon, thank you.